we are in pure projector mode, where we will now be discussing the TTRPG we're going to be yapping about today. So, TTRPG time. This is Tales of the Old West. You're going to see me go through how this system works, how this system runs. I may play around the mute, play around with stuff as things go. Hopefully the music isn't too loud. I would also look for some more like Western-inspired stuff. But yeah, so the game plan is, this is Tales of the Old West. It is the Year Zero engine. I should also have, so I can free draw. Yeah, I can free draw. I did have the idea of like using Photoshop to have me look like I'm drawing on the whiteboard with whiteboard pen. But it wasn't working out the way I wanted to because I couldn't get it accurately where I was drawing and where I was drawing on this whiteboard. So it was very scuffed and unorganized. But I realized, hey, the PDF readers have a feature that lets you draw on that and highlight stuff. So yeah. So again, this is Tales of the Old West. It's from the Year Zero engine. It is made by Effekt. It was originally on Kickstarter last year, or like a year or so ago. I backed it. It came out this year, and I already do have a YouTube video on it that is very scuffed, and I may redo it and may incorporate a lot of the stuff I'm doing from this into it and my new assets. But for the time being, I unfortunately do not have the resources or the moolah to expand on it further. And also, I do want to get more games in. I actually want to get a campaign of this in. So if that is something is you are interested in it as a player in my basement of playing as a rootin' tootin' cowboy, there are 2 books currently, like 2 narrative books for this game that are already out, which is one that is kind of New Mexico focused, and the other one is Nevada focused with a... Yes, I have a YouTube channel. I don't yap about it enough because it is incredibly scuffed and cringe, and it makes me feel very small and weak because it is not to the standard that I'm wanting for it. But yes, I do have a YouTube channel. I have some YouTube videos on there. I can even post a link in the Discord, or even I can post a link right here. At the moment, my content in there is very sparse. You will see a few of my Let's Learns over the years of me working out what the fuck I'm doing with my life and looking at the existential drain. So yeah, some of it may be cringe, but being cringe and being scuff is okay. I have learned to accept that I'm scuff as hell, and my voice will always be like this. There we go. How do I... There's my other eyes. There we go. I was triggering... my eye toggles are incredibly scuffed as well. But yes, I have a YouTube channel. If you like Vampire the Masquerade, you will be seeing a lot of Vampire the Masquerade content up there. My previous Chronicle is up there, as well as some of my old Lancer sessions and my old Cyberpunk campaigns are also up there. So it's a mixture of Let's Learns, my old Cyberpunk stuff, my old Lancer stuff. You'll probably, like, the moment like things take off and I get my production value sorted, you'll see a lot of new stuff. Oh, like, I know I can't change anything about my voice. That guy. Is this the case of, like, when you hear your voice in post-production, where you're editing videos and you're, like, listening to your voice constantly, you realize that you sound different when stuff's being played back to you than what you can hear. So even though I know my voice is good, but also, like, it's everyone's thing. Everyone's voice will be cringe when they hear it back, unless they have perfect crisp audio. I might look at like commissioning a audio file to like review my stuff and review my setup so I can get it more clearer. Because one issue I do have is my mic is very pressed up close to me at the moment. I kind of want it in a way where I can have it in a place where if I turn my head now, you're definitely gonna hear it now because my head is turned. Is that the microphone's not catching everything, and because my monitor setup is all around me, it's very hard for me to catch stuff. So if I look at this model, my monitor to my left, it's always like this, unless I move my microphone closer to me. I kind of want it so it hangs directly above me, and I can like catch everything. And also, like, if I'm playing with IRL dice when playing TTRPGs and DMing, you can hear the clackies. There will be no clackies at this moment in time because I've lost my Vampire the Masquerade dice somehow. I have no idea where my Vampire the Masquerade dice have gone. But yeah. Back on track. So yeah, this is Tales of the Old West. It is using the Zero engine. It is made by these two guys, David Somek and Matthew Taylor Jones. They are previous writers for the Aliens TTRPG. I'm just gonna move that over there so I can see my OBS. So they are the previous writers from there, and they moved on to this project. I'm going to be glancing over on this stuff because this isn't what we're here for. We're here to learn. We're not here to read. Well, I'm here to read. You're here to look at me and give me praise and headpats. So yeah, you have that. We have some chapters. The main goal here is to kind of give you the idea of what you should expect and why the hell you should be playing this TTRPG. Because one thing I feel with TTRPGs is how they are structured can give the wrong impression of how you should write and think of your characters. So, for example, I don't like TTRPGs that don't have stuff about the world or system mechanics before character creation. That is a pet peeve of mine. It is something that is in a lot of TTRPG books that incredibly annoys me. And the reason I don't like this is if you read character creation before anything else in the book, and I know a lot of people like character creation stuff first, but you create your character with separate expectations that cannot be mechanically serviced by the book, you immediately become disappointed. You should have an aspect of what the hell you want to be from your book before you make your character. So it's a tempering of expectations, and I kind of blame D&D for it. Of you come out with some like an outlandish idea that the book cannot create. Fortunately, if you stick to the fact of being a human being, and a human being in the late 18th century, the book will meet a lot of your expectations. You can even play a child with a gun to an extent. So if you want to be that kid with a gun who's out in the wilderness on their own with just some other criminals who have just adopted the child, you can do that. There are actually mechanical aspects to being a younger person than being an older one that we will get to later in this book. But another aspect of this book is this book is brutal. It is not a good book. The book will try to hurt you with as many paper cuts and bullets to the head as possible. There is a critical injury system in this book that is also very brutal and takes days of healing and can just outright kill you. And also horses are in this game and dogs are in this game and they will die if you roll badly. You need to accept this, that horses will die, dogs will die, you may need to get a new horse. The DM will emotionally destroy you over the fact that you got your horse killed and will tear it over you every single session because it is what they get their enjoyment from. But that's okay. You also might not have a horse or a dog or a bear. And you may end up killing other people's horses, dogs, or bears. That's okay. It's all about the story and the life you live and how you go about living in the West. So I like some things that get, yeah, it's kind of Call of Cthulhu vibes with how like realistic the injury systems can go. I wouldn't say it is as bad as Call of Cthulhu, because Call of Cthulhu throws a lot of stuff your way. I will say a lot of like the stuff that goes your way in this book are realistic. So we'll get to it when we get to it. And again, it's also a one point that does get mentioned at the very front, and I like this, is this TTRPG is a product of its time. Hey, Shuba, thank you very much for the follow. Enjoy your seat at the theater and get some snacks. I'm going to take a sippy. But yeah. So again, it makes it clear this is the Old West, late 18th century. Christianity and faith is very strong in America, especially in the South during that time. It is very like, so again, you don't need to be a man of faith. There again, well, you do need to be a man of faith, but we'll get to that. But again, it's the whole the American not so much the American dream, kind of. It's the false hopes that have been provided by the South. Yeah, again, it is just a product of the Deep South. So the traumas that are still there, the wrongs that were committed there, the displacements of Native Americans plays a heavy part in the West expansion. Yes, it's something you can't get away from. As much as you want to make a Wild West like a Wild West story that's fun and romping and like the old movies, you also kind of need to remember the old Wild West movies, while I love them and they are still like some of my favorite, because again, I still like the Dollars trilogy, they are still remembering a case of essentially propaganda of like the American man did no wrong and we're just trying to pursue their dreams. You don't get all through like the nitty gritty of like the darkness that was there, but you can address that in the book as a DM. But again, some people might want to live that old rootin' tootin' history, and you can play people of different faiths and cultures in this game, but they recommend that you take it with grace and use it as a point of learning and researching and doing it justice. And it is both mostly on the part of the DM to make sure that that is being carried out by the player and letting the player know beforehand, hey, if you want to play a half Native American who's like in touch with their spiritual side or trying to, example, Charles from Red Dead Redemption, you're trying to play that character, it's up to the DM to talk to that player and express, you might have a sense of like duality with it, or you might literally have nothing to do with your Native American ancestry, but because of your character's appearance, that is going to be assumed constantly of your character. So much so that it might become drawbacks. Now, one thing I will make very clear, don't use TTRPGs as an excuse to say slurs. It happens a lot. You shouldn't do it. Yep. Happens a lot on the LARP scene. It hasn't happened to me in a very long time. While I do my best to create bastard characters, I make sure my bastard characters do bastard things not of that level. Surprisingly, happens a fuck ton in the 40k TTRPG scene. Moving on though. Take that stuff with grace. and remember research, knowledge, and being fully much aware. What you're doing is putting on a mask of something that isn't yours. Now, may be very different if you're doing this in a private space, but even still, always treat a private space as it is as a public space when in TTRPGs. It's a comfort zone for everyone and should remain as such, for both the DM and the players. So again, a note on faith. Religion, faith, and mostly the Christian faith at that, was in fact the life of the 19th century in America. The Christian concept of manifest destiny and the forefront of Western expansion. For many devout pioneers, this was a true belief in the purpose decreed by Providence. For others, it was a convenient way of closing imperial ambitions in a higher purpose and convenient justification for seeking economic riches. But whatever the motivation, the influence of religion was presented in everyday life, day-to-day life. To reflect that, the push for mechanics in TTRPG is called faith. That said, we don't want faith to be a barrier for players' enjoyment of the game. Your character can be of any faith or none at all, in which case their faith comes from their entirely perhaps their own self-belief, their reliance upon friends, family, their connections with nature. Faith can be anything you want. It's your choice. So yeah. Next I'll go through some details of like the Wild West in the 18th century, in 1873. I'll go through some details. Again, we'll be going through a lot of content warnings. And we're going through lots of details and notes on history. But the basics are the basics. This is a Wild West TTRPG using the Year Zero engine. You will have your basics. You will have your players, which is you, unless you decide to become a DM. In which case, this is never you. You need to accept that. You will never be a player. You are a forever DM. Got it? You have the Game Master. Me. Maybe one day a player. You just have to convince them. Then your players will have the usual tools of their character sheets, their dice. Now, the dice system in Tales of the Old West uses a mixture of a few, but mostly you will see lots of d6s being rolled. The main reason for this is the system uses a pool of d6s for your skills and checks, and you are mainly wanting to roll sixes. A 6 means a success. A 1 means trouble. So again, here's the pet peeve. You do character creation first in this TTRPG. What the fuck? But yeah, it goes through some details. So it isn't as bad as most TTRPGs of like character creation stuff. So it goes through some details of you think about your character's archetype, which you currently have no information about yet. So why would you come up with your character's archetype when you don't know what the fuck you're doing? In most cases, you and your group will decide what you want to be. Or you can roll for it. So the game does have a life path system at the very back of the book, which is kind of like a roll to see your ethnicity, your family background, if you had family at all, as well as like where in the world you came from and came to the West from. Next, we'll cover your attributes. So you have 4 main attributes that apply to their own little hit point system in this game. You have grit, which is your strength, your physical prowess, your ability to just tough stuff out. Grit is very much attributed to your physique, how strong you are. When you take damage to your grit, it is always a physical, lasting wound. You take a bruise, you take a scratch, you lose your hair, you lose a tooth. That is what happens with grit. It is always physical. Quick. Quick is your quick thinking, your finesse, your hand-eye coordination, your nimble fingers. With quick, you are able to draw faster than the person your opponent. You're able to handle finesse better. But when this is your health pool, your quicks is more of your ability to keep your composure and keep your cool in a scene. You stop your hands from shaking so you can pull out your gun. You don't fumble as much. If you take damage to your quicks, you are shaken. You are trembling. You are fumbling whatever you are trying to do, which is going to lead to further harm. You are going to be a panicky mess with quick, which will lead to further trouble down the line. After that, though, so those are considered your two physical attributes and will normally attest to your physical checks and rolls. Now we'll move to more your social. So your cunning, your instinct, your ability to be suave and respectful and talk people into doing things you want or acting in a way that it seems respectable for the community you're in. This is your bullshit skill. Now, with it being your bullshit skill, this is your mask. If you take damage to your cunning, that mask slips, and you reveal your true self to to anyone around you. If you take damage to your cunning, it means that the facade you're setting to someone is cracking, and if it takes too much, you will eventually annoy the people around you, or become this irritable piece of shit, or this annoying asshole. So you might end up feeling the need to snap at people for no reason when you are taking damage to your cunning. It is basically you are being annoyed to the point you become irritated. You are being poked and prodded. That is cunning. If you can't be suave and keep your mask on, your mask is going to slip and they're going to see they irritated you. So you got to keep that mask on, keep that performance. Then we have docility. I know it's not pronounced docility, but yeah, I'm calling it this docility. You're not going to get anything else from me. I used to keep calling this docility, but I'm just going to call it docility. So this is your ability to learn things and expand your skill sets and also apply what you've learned. This is kind of your wisdom skill, or like your intelligence checks of like playing stuff off memory and things like that, or recognizing things and applying like what you've learned on your research to your life skills. Taking damage to this is that twinge of doubt that gets set in your mind of maybe I can't do this, maybe I'm lying to everyone, maybe I'm a failure. That is the damage you're taking when docility takes damage. Maybe it is docility. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Those are your four main attributes. Each attribute, depending on how many points of this attribute you start off with, are their own health point systems that when they reach 0, you get knocked out. Or you're removed from the scene in some way. Now, another thing of note is you always have a partner. You always have friends. You have people you can rely on. You have compadres. Which I shouldn't say with an accent because compadres is just a thing. We'll go into this in more detail when we get to chapter 6. But yeah, you have allies, you have compadres, you have relationships. You have friends. Unless we're playing a solo session, in which case no friends for you. But yeah. So, we've gone through those 4 attributes. Those 4 attributes correspond to skills. And we have some wonderful skills here. So we have fighting, which does exactly what it says on the tin. You fight. It obviously relies on grit because it is very physical. But this is you landing a hit, grappling someone, using a brawl skill, fighting in the dirt. It will obviously be how many points you have in fighting, along with how many points you have in grit. That will affect this fighting roll. You have labor, which is obviously general labor. Hey, can you lift this giant sack of grain off the ground and throw it on the cart? Can you pull this really strong lever that just won't budge for anyone else? That's labor. We know labor is more than just a simple thing of like move, thing, use, strength, rah. But yeah. But obviously, if you have, so you, again, you're getting the idea of how grit is very physical. Presence. This is just how you display your grit. Can you puff out your chest? Can you show how tough you are? Can you get all of the attention to you? This is where presence plays a part. So it's I'm big, I'm tough, I have grit. Look at me. Rah. Pound your chest. And then you have resilience. How much of a beating can you take because you are relying so much on grit that everyone is going to try and beat the shit out of you to prove your grit is not that great? That's exactly what it says on the tin. But you can obviously choose resilience to mean rely on a bunch of different things. It's all about how you word how that check will work. Moving on to your quick. You have light fingered. How good can those fingers work? In most cases, light fingers will obviously mean things like pickpocketing, picklocking, or doing general things that require finesse. Can you draw a gun on the fly? Can you pickpocket? Can you cheat at poker? That's where light fingered will play. Then, move. Move is very much generally how can you navigate a scene or walk, run, sprint, hurdle, parkour. Very simple. It's exactly what it says. Operate, much like how labor can be. This is the finesse version of labor in a sense of how can you operate machinery. Machinery isn't just use force, pull thing. It's knowing when to stop pulling the thing. So you could say, I can operate heavy machinery. I can lift this sack. Then can you know how to operate the sack? Or maneuver a lever? Or operate a train? Yep. And then obviously we have shooting. I don't think I need to explain what we're doing when we're shooting. But it's very much akin to your hand-eye coordination. It may very much work alongside your like fingered skill at times. Then obviously we have a cunning, our social skill of the game. So it's animal handling. Say we're on horseback and we're riding, we're relying on our cunning to get the horse to do what we want. If our animal handling isn't great, that horse is going to buck us. And things are going to go very bad. Then Hawkeye is obviously kind of like just your perception and your ability to read things and see things from long distance. Could kind of fit with other things, but then see why they put it in cunning. Because it kind of just can fill that spot. You're a Hawkeye, you're good at reading people, you can do the thing and see the difference, and what do your eagle eyes see? Which all moves to alongside of insight of what can you read from that, what can you pick up from those kinds of things. And then obviously, nature, while also could be a docility skill, especially with like book learning, it's being like nature focused or like nature smart. Because like you can read a book all you want, but sometimes being in the field and having that swagger is better than reading books. Sometimes you can just literally fake it till you make it. And those are your cunning. Then you have your docility. Docility. See what I mean? You have your docility, your book learning. Can you read? Your doctoring. Can you do doctor things and patch people up? Your making. Can you produce stuff and make things and not break whatever you make? And then performing, which also could kind of lead to cunning, but performing is more of reciting, acting, relies to the knowledge of acting, and straight out lying through your teeth. But a lot of the things consider overlap. So your physical and your social will overlap a lot, which can kind of lead to the idea of you can be strong in one, but not the other. You can be strong in one and not the other. Or you can be strong in both and be dog shit in the other two. It's all a case of what you are and what you want to be. Now, alongside with these skills, you will get some talents, which will usually be applied to your class in a sense. So, like, you choose like what class you're gonna be from the class selection. You'll get some starting talents from them, and then there are some generic multi-purpose talents that we will go through as well. Then you have faith. Faith is the thing that drives you to doing the stuff. So it's kind of like the mantra that keeps you going. It doesn't have to be actual faith. It can literally be a single-minded goal you have in mind that gets you out of bed in the morning. Of, I need to really pass this check because of my faith. So if your faith is making money, I really need to pass this check in order to make the money. It gives you some examples here of like my places in the saddle, which will probably like any check that gets you on a horse, you'll have a dream to ride. And like seeing how things go there. Also, I should check to see how my stream is actually going because I haven't actually looked at it for a bit. Yeah. Okay, a bit of a delay, but it's working. Neat. Yes. So you have your talents. Then you have your big dream. Your big dream is your ultimate goal of what you want in life, which can be survive. It can be, I want to get a farm, or I want to make enough money to live a comfortable life, or I want to clear these debts that have been clearly put on me because of someone else, and I am dealing with the multi-generational trauma. Yeah. Your big dream is the thing that kind of drives you. In most cases, the big dream will be like the overarching narrative of like the stuff that's going on in the game. And like will correspond with like your relationship. So you'll have a bunch of like NPC characters that the GM will provide you to like build a connection with, like build a rivalry, build a hatred, build rapport. You also will always have a partner. You can either select your partner or like choose which other player is going to be your partner, and like kind of like play with the idea that your character and their character are partners. They should have each other's back regardless of the situation. Unless you really want to like break that friendship right off the bat. But you always have a partner, which will lead to some mechanics later. You will also have some gear later along the lines. Now, the game does have encumbrance. You can't carry everything on your back. In most cases, you may need a cart, you may need a donkey, you may need a horse. The way things weigh is usually played to, are they heavy items or are they light items? If they are heavy items, you need to roll grit to make sure you are carrying them, or you can carry them. Lights you can kind of like carry with just one arm. But like in other ideas, is the case of like, you may need a cart, you may need a horse, you may need to keep them stowed. You can't have everything on your back. And then obviously, tiny items you don't even count for. These are the things that you can keep in your pocket. They don't take encumbrance. Now, if you're in a situation where your character is over encumbered, they can take up a total number of items based on their grit times 2. If they are carrying heavier than that, then it is a resilience check to see how long they can carry them before they fall on the ground. The GM decides how long they do that for, or how long each success gets them there. But obviously, if they fail that check, they're going to start taking points of shakes in order to keep going. Kind of like when you carry too much shopping, you know you've fucked yourself over, but you've got to get it to the end. God damn it, that bag is going to rip before I break. Until you fall onto the ground and need assistance. And then once that's all done, you have your appearance of how your character looks, you have your character's name. In most cases, you may be assigned a horse. It can be a talent. In most cases, you will like either roll for your horse or you'll get like a box standard horse and stuff like that. Where you live usually depends on where the campaign is going to begin, or like where we're planning the campaigns. Same for like character development. That stuff is kind of like when discussing the campaign elements to the characters, that's what you go with. And then as you're playing through, you'll have a number of experience points that you gain at the end of each session. Based on some questions, you'll get like 1 XP for it. It's like, did you participate in the game session? There's your I was there point. Did you risk or sacrifice anything to help you realize your big dream? It is a reason of, you need to pursue your big dream, get that experience. Or did you do something to really like have your partner's back? You'll get that. Or did you do something extraordinary? You'll get that. Or did you act in accordance to your faith? You'll get that. Here's one little extra fun thing for me that makes me award people extra experience. If you talk to the players and say, hey, who wants to give us the recap of the last session? Whoever does that, give them extra XP. Reward them for doing that. Because it makes others want to do it in the future. And it'll help them refine that recapping. Because recapping is important. And God knows, I don't take notes. Everyone knows I don't take notes. I just look at the recordings I do later. Yeah. So that's how EXP is. So, again, goes through settlements. So settlements are where your character lives, where your character interacts, where your characters do their jobs. Maybe during a campaign, your character might open a shop, or do business, or have a front. Unless you're playing a posse who are moving from settlement to settlement. In which case, it won't really play a part. It may be a very big headache on a DM because they have to make multiple settlements, but that's on them. And obviously, you have spending XP. Usually, learning a new ability by one level costs 5 EXP. Learning the next level of the ability also costs 5 XP. Or learning a new ability at level 1 costs 5 XP. Talents. Learning the basic rank of a talent is 4 EXP. Now, most of the generic talents, which are the multi-purpose ones, you have an advanced and a basic. Basic is kind of like a, hey, this is what the talent does, you get that. Advanced is, hey, you can do this talent and more. So, basic rank 4 EXP. In order to advance it is 6. You have to learn the basic before you learn the advanced. So an example for this is, say there is a talent that lets you kill someone without having to roll a check, which was something we'll get to later. Then you have that. In other, like, the advanced version for that might be you actually get rewarded for getting the final blow and killing people. I like to call this the Micah talent. Yeah. But also, dreams aren't forever. You have to lower your expectations, kid. So in some cases, you can change your big dream and choose a new one. And then you start gaining XP when you try and connect to that dream. You can also do the same with changing relationships with NPCs or with your partner. Your partner may not like the fact that you're killing a bit too much and you're getting a taste for it. And may like to choose a different partner to have their back. Or they may tough it out and think maybe they can change in the future. But yeah, so now we're actually going to get to the nitty-gritty of creating your character. Now, the starting one is very basic. It'll show you a few things and give you the idea. Most cases, go through a session 0. I do not go through session 0s. I just have solo talks with people. And it kind of works out. So, we have an example of what our character sheet looks like here. So, like, if we can zoom in. Nope, we can't zoom in because the pixels. Okay. We'll go through that stuff later. Actually, no, I can do my magic trick. No, I can't go through my magic trick. I may be able to go through my magic trick. Give me a second. Ba 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 da da da. Ba da da da. There we go. Ta-da! This is the Foundry VTT table for Tales of the Old West. Created as a Kickstarter redeem. Now, here is a brief spoiler on the table for Foundry VTT. I have mixed feelings about it, but it does its job. So, we are going to go here. We are going to call our new character Barry. This is Barry. We do not know Barry's archetype yet. We do not know Barry's partner yet. But this is how your character sheet kind of looks like. You'll have your character name. You'll have your partner, who we're just going to call our partner Tom. You can choose your archetype. So there are some archetypes you get to choose from. When we get back to the other book, we will show you. So you get to choose your archetype. You get to choose your group's concept. So are you lawmen and bounty hunters? Are you outlaws? Are you ranchers? Are you farmers? Are you running a business? Are you just cowboys? Or are you mountain folk? And then you get to choose your faith. So we'll just say, like, Barry's faith is, let's say... What's a good faith for Barry? What do you think Barry's faith will be? Maybe. Or we can figure that out when we actually go through all this other stuff. So, back to the page. So, when going about creating your character or creating your group, first things first is always come up with your group's concept. So obviously we have lawmen and bounty hunters, or your character is going to be sheriffs or federal marshals, or just bounty hunters trying to just create justice. You get some nice little styling here as a lawman. Obviously you have a few more things handy. Yeah, you can be marshals. You can be a nice little militia. Okay. gonna take a drink of my Dr. Pepper. But yeah. So, yeah. So, again, when you're playing as a lawman or a bounty hunter, you'll always start off with a gun with 2d6 bullets, a horse that can't be a Appaloosa, Ganus, or Arabian. You get your badge that you can possibly pawn off, and you have iron manacles, which makes capturing people easier. I as the DM may give you a base of operations. I may give you a town. Or I may just give you bounty potions and say, go get. The next one is, do you want to be outlaws? Do you want to only care about making that money? Getting that dollar? In which case, you will start off with a gun with 2d6 bullets. No shiny horse for you. You get a knife. But maybe knife can get you horse. You have lockpicking tools for some good old larceny. And again, you get D66 dollars. Outside of that, you have ranches. So you're living off livestock, you're living off a trade, you have land, maybe you've bought a place using the Homestead Act. You got those acres of land that you are trying to like build a life with and get some stuff. You will obviously not start off with a gun, but you will get a horse. You'll get a lasso, so you'll have some rope. Maybe your nice average 60 feet of rope. You'll have a rifle rather than a pistol with 2d6 bullets. And you get a bonus compadre. You get a nice little stable hand who works at your ranch. And again, the basics of a ranch is literally protecting your little slice of home and like making your living and making your trade. You can literally just make a campaign of being a ranch hand or a farmer, where if you're a farmer, again, you also have your land, you have your crops, you have your wares, you get a donkey and a cart, so it makes transferring the goods easier. You get a shotgun with 2d6 shells. You get some farming tools to make your life of farming easier, and you also get that bonus compadre. Usually, when becoming a farmer or a rancher, you will need a bit of like extra starting capital. Capital is kind of the way you go about getting like stock, in a sense, in Tales of the Old West. And you can also just be a business owner. You can have a nice little shop or a bar or a trade to go about your life with. So maybe like, hey, your group has come into some capital, or maybe you have inherited a like bar or a shop or a casino or a stable, and you go about figuring out how to make that work and not lose it in the process or go into crippling debt. So as a business owner, you'll obviously start off with your traditional items or pieces of furniture for the business, your high quality tools of that trade, your bonus compadre who works at the shop. You're just a bunch of folks hanging out, and also you get D66 not dirty dollars, nice clean dollars of reputable income. Now, if you don't want to be a business owner or a farmhand or a rancher, you can just be a cowboy, a vaqueros. You go about with the usual, but you're neither you're neither lawman nor outlaw. You're just you. You get a pistol with 2d6 bullets. Quality level chaps and spurs for a random horse. And also a well-used lasso. Your 60 feet of used rope. But also you get some extra benefits, like you get some extra dollars. And then, or maybe you live in the mountains. You don't want to be around people. And you live off the land and you forage. Yeah, you only get to pick 2 of the 4. Again, it's a case of like you pick 2 of the 4, but the rest of your group get to pick their own 2 of the 4. Like, not everyone wants used rope, but Barry loves used rope. And again, like mountain folk, you get your rifle with 2d6 bullets. You get your quality warm fur cloak made of high quality beaver. Some animal traps to help you catch your meal. And a horse. Or a donkey. The group also gets the benefit of 2d6 multiplied by the numbers of players in the group that can be divided among them as the players see fit. And those are your starting ideas of what you can be. So, we're just going to say that Barry here is going to just be a cowboy. Him and Tom are just cowboys going out there using used rope. So, moving from that, it also goes into details of playing characters of diverse cultures, which I explained earlier. We want this game to be accessible to people from all over the world. I don't want players to feel directed into playing their stereotypes of white cowboy, particularly when history shows us that white Americans in the West were more diverse. When playing a character from a culture that is not your own, be aware how easy it can be to fall into the trap of relying on cultural stereotypes and how insensitive that can be. This is particularly true of the Native American background. We caution you against assigning your player the character the heritage of a real-world tribe or First Nation unless you share that heritage. These tribes and communal identities are intensely personal, and it would be easy to inadvertently trivialize someone else's tradition. Instead, we recommend you create your own fictional tribe and community for your Native American player character, where you can explore the history and experiences of the Native American communities without infringing on the cultural identity of others. We also recommend you do not choose names of Native American characters that might fictionalize Native American naming conventions. Many Native Americans in mixed communities took on or were given European names. That is likely to be the best approach when the player does not have a native background. Be mindful that these issues we hope to actively recognize and respect the honor and traditions rather than inadvertently ignoring and disrespecting them. Again, have that grace. Now, this also applies for me, being British. Yeah, don't be racist. Oh, it's not so much of being racist, it's more of cultural appropriation, which is so easy to happen. Because, like, literally, how many times have I done it in this session of culturally appropriating American stereotypes? Like, I can make a jolly American Texan, but also I am white British. Now, not a very thin line, but there is still that line. Easier for me to play, from my background, an Irish immigrant. But then I don't have that immigration situation. So you always have to kind of like be aware that even no matter how fine the line you're treading, when you're playing someone of a different culture, you're appropriating it. You're best not to fall into the stereotypes. Unless, say, that stereotype is really actually accurate. So I can play... say I was to turn Barry into this rough, tough Scottish guy. who's just looking to find the way in life in the West. And I say that I'm doing a Scottish accent now, but when it's kind of fading into an Irish accent, you can see how I'm appropriating it right there. I have to use the right accent. I have to go this fake Scottish accent when I'm doing it. I also can't do that for long. I need Dr. Pepper. Right. But yeah, moving on. So yeah, we have our archetypes. Our archetypes are our classes. These are the things that give us our starting talents. These are also the things that decide our skills. You have a few of them. You have gentlefolk, who are basically your nice, humble shopkeeper, your nice talker relying on social skills rather than brute force. Or you have your grifter, who's relying on his cunning and his ways to cheat things through. Or your homesteader, who's kind of like a mixture of both, but mostly labor. Or your laborer, who is obviously going to be more grit focused. Here also lawman and outlaw are also separated into archetypes. Then you have your prospector and your ranch hand. And then your tracker and your trader. You can kind of see how they are split in twos of like similar archetype, but also kind of still different. It's like there's obviously going to be that difference between a grifter and a gentlefolk, and also a homesteader and a laborer, and a lawman and an outlaw, prospector and a ranch hand, and tracker and a trader. And they also can overlap into each other, which kind of leads into the idea that just because you're taking talents from one doesn't mean you can't take talents from another later down the line. Now, fun thing, and whenever I explained earlier that, hey, you can play a kid, your age plays a factor in your starting stats. So, choosing your character's age at the start will help you decide how many extra attributes you're going to get. So, you play a 15 to 20-year-old, you get to start off with 6 attribute points. So these are the things that you can distribute into your grit, your quick, your cunning, and your docility. Then your ability points, so like your skills, your fighting, stuff like that, you only get 2, which explains that like you have your youth and vigor, but you don't have your skills set, and you don't have the talent. But as you're older and like you're getting too old for this shit, and like you don't have as many attributes, but you get more ability points and more talent. And then if you're an old timer, wear and tear in life is dulled your attributes, but you have more skill and you have more talent, and you get to choose where you're going about with these things. So we're gonna go back to Barry here, and we're gonna say, since Barry is a cowboy, we're gonna say like Barry is going to be a tracker. What he's tracking, we don't fully know. Maybe him and his Tom are just hunters and looking to get some skins, or are just hunting meat. Or maybe they are actually just bounty hunters, but aren't lawmen. So maybe they do just want to get that meat. And so that's what we have Tom as at this moment in time, which may help us come up with what Barry and Tom's faith will be in the later. So for now, we'll just say their faith is to get that meat. And then we go back to the PDF. So, and also we'll probably say like Barry is, I'd say Barry is like middle-aged. Now let me find on the book where it lets me put age. We're going to say he's like 25. So he fits on this category. He's tested. But he's not an old timer. There is quick character generation, which is what we're going to be looking at here. Or you can go into more detail, or you can roll for it, which is near at the end of the book. So we're going to go through some of the archetypes and see how, like, do we expect their skills to go. Now, we've already kind of decided that our Barry here is going to be a tracker. So we're gonna go through the details and see what we get. So we also need to be aware that we have 5 attribute points, 4 ability points, and 2 talents to add on to this. So first things first, gentlefolk. Your community man, your civilized person, your talker, your shopkeeper, your doctor, your bookkeeper. Has more like docility, some cunning, some quick, some grit. More stuff in the docility part. So you can see that, like, docility is their main thing, but obviously they have some cunning which they have in insight. So they're people. They're a people person. Your gentlefolk is your people person. Not so great for labor, not so great for fighting, but they can, like, escalate their voice and have a presence, and they know how to operate stuff. You're not gonna see a gentlefolk shoot. And you're definitely not likely going to see a gentlefolk kill. So you get some things with being a gentlefolk, so you have a nice little calming manner. So you can reassure people that things are going to be okay, though. Let's not have any trouble. And use your presence and get an extra for it to get, like, to help people stand down. You also, if you're wanting to be a doctor, you have that, like, healing touch. You can, like, rely on your skills and, like, maybe you are a doctor and stuff like that. You can be high society, which will, like, help you to talk to the people of culture, help you talk to the city folk, help you talk to people who think the interpretation of being of high society is a benefit, and also which helps you to be like the voice. You're essentially the face of a group if you're wanting to be a gentlefolk. And they give you some examples of what your faith can be. You can just be a preacher in this game, and it is considered a job that you don't get a wage for. And again, you get your extra choices of gear, which can be a doctoring bag. You do get a gun. You get a D-ringer. You get an Arabian horse with a saddle and tack. And you get a pipe and tobacco. So those are the extra things when you are a gentlefolk. Now, Grifter. Looking at Grifter, more points in cunning, more points. Still have those in insight, but still has docility because they need to be performing. But they spend those. I'd say they're a mixture of these 3, but not grit. But they have to be resilient. So, being a grifter means that you can be a swindler. So you can cheat and swindle, you get a +1 bonus when you're doing those kind of things. This will apply to something later on when we go into the systems of gambling, and more specifically, the poker mechanics in this game. Because there are poker mechanics. Then obviously, lockpicking. Say we want to be a grifter who can lockpick, we can do that. Gambler. Say we want to spend all of our time into town making money through gambling, or say we've got some stuff to shill. Now, shill isn't exactly negative. You could be selling some of your friends' wares that they just have not in their shop. And these are things that give you dice bonuses. Now, some of the extra gear you can have, nice little pack of cards, so you can play poker anywhere. You get a Cooper revolver with D6 rounds. You get to a lockpicking set, so if you pick Outlaw but don't want to take the lockpicking set from that, you can get it here. And you get a good bottle of whiskey, which is a good bottle of whiskey. Who doesn't want a good bottle of whiskey? Next up, Homesteader. So, Homesteader, good grit, good labor, kind of some good docility because you gotta treat stuff at home, but not a lot. But cunning, because you gotta work with animals, and you gotta be good with nature. You gotta know your home, and you always gotta have a gun. Basically, it's all the stuff you need to tend to these 160 acres of soil you get from the Homesteaders Act, as well as to defend it. Now, as a talent for this, you can get a horse. And with this, it's when your horse is your closest companion. When it dies, you lose this talent. But then you can buy this talent back at half the price. And which indicates you're getting a new horse. And the new horse you get gets the loyal quality. We'll go to qualities later. But think of them as extra attributes or stats that equipment and horses and animals can get. So with this talent, you can always you have a horse. That horse is loyal to you, so it won't buck you off. Then you also can choose to be a survivor. You're living out in the wilderness. You're living out on your own. You've got to be rugged. You've got to be able to shake stuff off. No one's really going to be caring and tending for you when you're at home and you stub your thumb and break it. You gotta learn to live on your own. And obviously, Smith, you know how to make stuff, craft, hammer, smith, and shotgun master. You are good with a shotgun. And you can beat people off with the butt of your shotgun, just like smack them in the face. Now, obviously, being that you have a home and have a farm, farming equipment, you will have shotgun mastery, shotgun with 2d6 rounds, Missouri Foxtrotter and tact, so you get a horse, and you have wagon and a mule, so you get another horse. Laborer similar to Homesteader, however, maybe not so much living on a house. You might be living on someone else's ranch and stuff like that. Good grit, strong labor skills, not the smartest tool in the shed, but good at making things and good at operating things. Don't expect them to shoot. Don't expect them to tell if someone's lying to them. Don't expect them to have a presence to let them bleed into the background. These are very honest folks, and a lot of the cases of what kind of honest folk they're going to be. So, minor 40 minor. You can handle explosives. You get dynamite. Pugilist. You can fight with your fists. Arrow Raiser, you know how to rile up your fellow miners or laborers. You just go out there screaming, Union! Union! And everyone just joins. And obviously sneak. You can bleed into the background. Now with this, you have basic tools based on whatever labor job you have. You have a knife, mining equipment if that is what your laboring role is, and you have your bottle of whiskey. Because, bottle of whiskey. Then we have Lawman. Good grit. Good quick. Can shoot. Not the most honest or book smart. Knows how to handle an animal because need to have a horse. But a lawman's not going to care about nature, insight, or Hawkeye. Shoot first, ask questions later. As a lawman, obviously you have authority. You have horse warrior, so fighting while moving on a horse. Being a judge of character. Yeah. And then Manhunter. can hunt people down. As a lawman, you get a court walker holster. So a holster for your gun. Weapon holsters do play an important part in Tales of the West. And 3d6 rounds, so you get extra bullets. You can get a coach gun, which also has those advantages and disadvantages. You get a Morgan horse and tack, and you get handcuffs. So if you don't take stuff in the archetype or the group archetype, you can take that stuff here. So while like you only have 2 options, you have 2 options here as well, and it fills in the blanks as well as the cache. Then you have outlaw. Outlaw, you're more quick. You gotta fight. You know how to use your horse. You ain't smart. You ain't nature focused. You ain't doing no labor. And you are fragile. You could argue maybe you need Lightfingered as an outlaw. But yeah, this is what you get. Now, as an outlaw, obviously, you are cold-blooded. You are a completely callous killer, and you can kill defenseless enemies without so much of a second hesitation. We will go through this in more detail, where we will go through the coup de grace. Because the coup de grace is a mechanic in this game. It is a mechanic in the Year Zero engine in general, of you need to make a coup de grace check when you are killing someone. Which is usually a docility check. If you succeed your docility check, when you succeed your docility check, you don't kill. If you fail your docility check, you kill. And then you take damage to your docility. So being cold-blooded means you don't make that check. You pull the trigger. Now, you still lose that point of docility when you do this. So you can't just gun down 5 people unless you have 5 points in docility. There is the advantage of cold-blooded, which lets you don't lose docility when you kill people, which is why I called cold-blooded the Micah talent. But yeah, so that's cold-blooded. You also get quick draw. You can draw your gun faster than your enemies can blink. So you get an extra bonus when drawing your gun. Now, drawing your gun has a bunch of factors in mind, such as the gun you are drawing, the holster your gun is in, and quick draw. This quick draw skill will only impact when that gun is in your holster. If you already have your gun drawn, then you don't need to quick draw. So this is, I need to pull my gun out my ass on the fly. Better have quick draw. Knife fighter. If you have a knife, you're going to be fighting, you get an extra bonus to your fighting skill. And you can dual wield. You can have a pistol in 2 hands without a negative penalty. Usually, if you want this to dual wield revolvers, you would get a -2 penalty on top of the -2 penalty of the quick shot skill. So you would get a -4. But you have the advantage of performing an extra shot with that gun. So if you have 2 pistols out, you can shoot with one, shoot with the other, but you're going to get a -4. And then obviously, you get a second gun. You get a Colt 45 Peacemaker with a holster and 3d6 rounds. You can get a second Colt 45 Peacemaker with a holster, but no extra bullets. You'll have a American Quarter Horse with tact and 1 stick of dynamite. Without minor 49er, might I add. So when you want to blow a door open and not blow yourself open, we will get to explosive damage at a later point in the PDF. Right, Prospector, your miner, your ore acquirer, your gold getter. A mixture of the lot. Again, nature, so you know where to mine. You know how to make stuff with what you got. You've got some book smarts, so you know how to measure and count gold. You can operate equipment, and you're good at laboring. You're good at brawling. You don't need weapons to bring down an enemy. All your unarmed attacks get a +1 bonus. You're an engineer. You know how to maintain your equipment, so you get a bonus to your operate. Dog. You get a guard dog as your loyal companion. It will stand by your side and defend you to the death. When your dog dies, you lose this talent and you can rebuy it at half the price and get a new dog. So congratulations, you can get a puppy in this game and spend the few weeks training and raising that puppy. You also get that presence bonus when you're alongside your dog. Because, you know, oh no, my dog, it don't bite. And then you get Herbalist. Good little nature skill. Good for doctoring. You get your panning equipment so you can find gold. You have your Colt 1860 New Army with no holster and 1d6 rounds. You get your mule. And you get camping gear. And that's what you get as being a prospector. Now, ranch hand, essentially lawman, discount lawman and discount outlaw. Goodish grit, goodish cunning, docility with no skills, light fingered shooting and free quick. Basic. But they were born in the saddle, so when they're riding a horse, they get a +1 check to animal handling. They can also break horses. So you know how to handle and train horses, so you can break a horse and train it. Which means you also have good reaction speed, lightning fast. You need to be quick thinking and quick on your feet at times. And also you're good at lassoing horses. So say you want to play a game where you are playing a ranch hand who can go out there and find wild horses and like catch them, train them, break them, and then later sell them. You can play that in this campaign. Now, you get your lasso. You have a Cooper pistol with holster and 2d6 rounds. You get a Mustang with saddle and tack. And you get camping gear. They kind of indicate that most of your time is going to be spent out there in the wild looking for wild horses. Next, we have Tracker. So this is Barry. So we know Barry, he has some resilience being out there in the wild and going about and finding people. He's got some quick in his step because he's got to learn to shoot and hunt. He's got to be light fingered as well. He's got good cunning, which relies on his nature and his Hawkeye. But he's not a people person. And these are your trackers. And more specifically, this is Barry. So we're going to open this up. We're going to reopen Barry. Go to his skills. And copy these over. So he's got 2 grit with 2 resilience. And you'll notice that when I do grit and this, we get 2 points here. Because what I mentioned earlier, grit is your health pool. So grit is his health pool for hurts. And also he has 2 resilience. Then he's going to have quick with 2 quick with 1 shooting and 1 operate. Or is that shooting and light fingered? No, it's shooting and light fingered. It's shown different on here. He has 3 cunning with Hawkeye and nature. Yep, 2 Hawkeye, 2 nature. And docility is just 2. But we've got to remember, Barry is a 25-year-old. So we're going to scroll back up to here. And scroll. There. He is tested, so we get 5 more attribute points. So how are we going to go about this? We're going to say that he has a bit more. He has 2 more grit. He has 2 more quick. So he's 4 quick. He's going to get an extra point in his cunning. And then an extra point in his grit. So he's got a bit more grit. He's got a bit more quick and cunning. I think I did 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. And then we'll say... Actually, no. We're going to give him 5 cunning. So again, he's really bad with people, but he's very like good cunning. He gets 4 ability points. So I'm gonna put 1 more ability point in his shooting to put him to 2 shooting. I'm gonna put 1 more in his Hawkeye and 1 more in his nature, so that's 3 spent. We have 1 more point to put somewhere else, and I'm going to say he has 1 point in fighting for when he gets up close. And then he gets 2 talents. So we get to pick 2 of these next 2 talents. So we haven't gone through the tracker's talents yet, but we'll go through them now. Let's go back to tracker. There we go. Almost there. I missed it. So trackers, they get the talent of light-footed. So they can walk without leaving a trail behind. They get a +1 to their nature when they're trying to avoid someone tracking you. Mountain folk, you get a bonus to nature and resilience checks when you're being tested in the wilderness. Bowmaster, you're good with a bow. And you can use it to make... You can use a bow at long range with no penalties. And tracker. You know how to move and track and hunt. So, we know that what I'm going to do is... I'm probably going to take... Light-footed. I'm going to take the light-footed talent. And I'm going to take the tracker talent. And then... Oh, it went missing. There we go. Yeah. So I put the talents here. And you can tell that I've got the basics of these. And these automatically apply the skills. So yeah. So we have our things, we have our skills, we have our talent, we have our archetype and our group. Let's go back to the PDF. We also get our starting gear. So we get camping gear, a Winchester 1868 with 2d6 rounds, a Pinto horse with tact, and a knife. So I'm just going to move these to one side. So let's reopen our character sheet. And we will go to gear. So you'll notice that we have some gear here. Some of this other stuff doesn't really matter. So first things first, so I'm going to search for my Winchester. This is a Winchester 1868. We don't have that option for some reason. It says 1866 here. I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to pick the 1866. And then you'll notice that it's got some stuff here that we'll get into detail with when we go to ammo. But also we have 2d6 rounds, so I'm going to take my thingy and I'm going to roll 2d6. 10 rounds. Not 10. We also get some camping gear. which is going to show up in our gear here. We get a Pinto horse, which will be here. I don't think I can put one in. Oh, no, we can. Pain/Pinto. Nope. So the horses are their separate separate PCs. So I have to make a horse NPC. Create actor. Call it Pinto. It is an animal. Can I put it in here? No. But I can put its breed in here. Now, you actually have the option to roll for your horse's stats. That is something we will go through at a later point. Let's get back to Barry. So we'll put Pinto horse. I'll put the Pinto horse at a different point in time. But if we do get a knife. And the knife shows here. So yeah. We've got most of our equipment done. Oh, we do also get some cash. We have 2d6 times 1 cash. So let's me roll another 2d6. We have $7. Yay, $7. But that doesn't relate to the other stuff we have. So if we go back to our archetype, where cowboys and which if we consider, you know, inflation in the late 18th century, that $18 is going to be like 1,000 nowadays. All right, if we go to cowboys, we see what extra stuff we can get as cowboys. I also realize I'm not going to take the knife. I'm actually going to maybe take the knife if we have it as an option for cowboys. We don't, so I'm gonna take away the knife because we only get to choose 2 options. But we get to use our well-used rope. Which it doesn't give us the well-used, but we can put it here. It being well-used rope is important. There we go. Well-used lasso. And yeah, I'll say this is where we're getting our horse. So we get a random horse that can't be in Appaloosa, or Caños, or an Arabian, which will probably be a paint horse. But I'm not choosing the pistol or the chaps. So I'm not a true cowboy. And then we go down here. So, go back to the character sheet. Rolling the bones. So, this is how we're going to roll in this TTRPG. As we all know, in most cases for most TTRPGs, in order to roll, you need to perform an action. Usually, this action has to be something that has some level of risk. Be it a mental, physical, or an outcome that is required and requires actual force. So, usually saying like, hey, my guy wants to pick up this bottle from the table, I'm not going to make you roll a check for that. Unless you are either going to try to steal that check, steal that bottle, in which case I will make you roll a check, or you're going to use that bottle to hit someone over the head with it. In which case, I'm going to make you roll a check for hitting someone over the head with a bottle. That shit's not going to be free unless you're hitting on someone unsuspecting. So, when performing an action, you will be taking the skill that you are wanting to roll, taking the actual skill itself and its corresponding attribute. And then you roll. Now, let's get to trouble. Usually when you're rolling, it means that you can get in trouble in some way, shape, or form. Now, whenever you roll for any check you make, the first dice you roll in those checks are your trouble dice. So, usually in like this case, it'll choose 5 dice and like that. But if you say you're rolling actual dice, you will like choose the first dice you're rolling. So you could either roll them one at a time, and the first dice are the trouble dice, or you could choose the dice from left to right. I like the left to right system of choosing your dice. But that's just me. Rolling one at a time could also work. So like you roll 5 and then your 6th and 7th dice you roll in the check don't really matter. Or they do matter, but they don't matter to your trouble dice. Begin. Trouble dice will play a part in the roll when you want to do two things. Push and roll a 1. So, give us an example of a dice roll. When you roll a 6 on your dice pool, a single 6 is needed for a success. So, when you are rolling to make a check, you want a just 1 6. That's all you need. When you get that 6, you get a success. When you get more 6s, those are called stunts. So, rolling extra 6s gives you extra benefits that you get to choose as a player. And it will give you some options on the check. This could be stuff from dealing more damage, or getting more of benefit, or allowing a ally to not need to make the roll to succeed. So that's how you succeed. You succeed by rolling 6s. But what happens if you roll a 1? Well, here comes trouble. If you roll a 1 on a dice, on your trouble dice specifically, then you are going to land yourself in trouble if you try to push your luck. Trouble only applies if you push your roll, and pushing your roll usually means re-rolling dice in order to succeed. So, when rolling a dice or re-rolling for trouble, you are usually spending a faith point to re-roll a number of dice. Hopefully you're not re-rolling the 6s. Unless you have a reason to re-roll the 6s. So, you say you rolled a few checks, you've rolled a 1, you know you've rolled a single 1, but you didn't roll a success, so you need to push. You're going to spend one of your faith to re-roll. You can have the option of spending extra faith to remove that 1. So it will let you re-roll that 1 you rolled. That is a choice. You have to spend extra faith for it. You are buying out your trouble with faith. If you do that and you re-roll, hey, if you rolled a 6, you succeeded. Yay. If you succeeded and you rolled a extra 1, then trouble's coming your way, buddy. And that is where what happens next is... So again, pushing your roll, that's re-rolling. You spend your 4 faith points to re-roll. If you get a 6, you succeed. If you roll a 1 and you re-roll and you didn't buy off those ones, you're going to get trouble. Dealing with trouble is the main mechanic of stuff in this game. So, depending on how many 1s you roll, you are going to get this fun little table. This table rolls off of how many 1s you have rolled in your check. Be it 1, be it 2, be it 3, or be it 4+. You are going to be in real trouble if you rolled more than 4 1s and were unable to buy them off. Then you roll a d6. That d6 will correspond with the number of trouble dice you've rolled to determine the trouble you've landed yourself in. So say you've only rolled 1 trouble dice. You roll a d6 in correspondence to that. Say you roll a 2. You stumble, slip, or trip. So, say you're doing something physical. Say you're trying to run or jump over something. You trip, you lose your next slow action, which means you lose your next long action. Or your next full action. But this can lead you into very bad things. Where, say, you immediately are broken, so you're immediately taken out of the fight. Or you bash yourself and hurt yourself. Or literally your gun explodes, or you cut yourself. Now, these are split into you have your physical and conflict, and you have your mental and social. It usually corresponds to the kind of checks you're rolling and the skills and attributes that are being rolled. Now, usually, rolling a 6 on the other ones means you push it up 1. This means you re-roll the table. So, we're going to test that out now. So, here's what's going to happen. We're going to say our tracker here, Barry, is going to shoot someone. So if you see here, we've just gone to shoot someone. We've succeeded. So we've rolled 1, 6, meaning we've succeeded. And we rolled 1, 1. So you see that we have this option here to push. Now, we could push our luck and try and get more 6s. And say, like, we push, we re-roll these. Let's try. So we've spent a faith point. And we've rolled an extra 6. Which means we get a stunt. So now we rolled that 6, we get an extra 6. We can do inflict additional damage with our gun. So usually it's an additional single point of damage. We can choose to instead pin that enemy down with our gun, which makes them take damage to their doubts as well. Because sometimes you don't want to you don't actually want to hit an enemy with your gun. You want to pin them down or make them give up. Or you can push your enemy to the ground, or you can do extra stuff. Now, with a gun, when we get to guns, you can do critical injuries by rolling multiple 6s. This is usually based on the crit rate of the gun. So, if we were to shoot with our Winchester, we see that our Winchester has a crit rate of 1, meaning we need 1 extra 6 for the option to crit. So we could cause a critical injury with that shot. Alongside the 2 damage we deal with that Winchester. But we will get to that point when we get to it. Back to the PDF. So, that's what happens when we are trouble. Now, we can modify our dice in some way. As you've already seen, we have some talents that give us +1 bonuses, +2 bonuses, minus bonuses as well can happen. Certain factors in play, such as the difficulty of the check, will correlate to the modifiers we will get. So say the difficulty of the roll is actually easier than you think. I will say, hey, this roll is easy, you get a +1. If I say, this roll is hard, you get a -2. So let's go back to that. So let's go back to the table and say, hey, we're going to do some fighting now. We're going to take a -2 modifier to our fighting check. Oh, look, we failed our fighting check. And we don't really want to push our luck, so we're going to choose to fail that. Let's say we don't want to choose to fail that and we want to push. We still failed. And we spent faith. Boo. So you got to bring those things into account when you're doing rolls. Now, also, you have to be aware, NPCs do the same shit that you do. And I usually bring those in. I bring those into account when I'm rolling as well. Again, certain gear plays an aspect into the attributes as well. So, you probably may have already seen it, but guns also have attributes and bonuses to certain checks as well. Especially revolvers. So we go with this. We go with group rolls. With group rolls, and you interact together. You make a group roll instead of rolling individual. Most commonly occurs when all characters are acting in a group or are trying to be stealthy and working together. In situations where only one person has to succeed for the group roll, the person with the highest value of the roll among the participating groups rolls the check. And in situations where you can only one person is needed to fail the check, the lowest person rolls that instead. But you get a bonus based on the number of people there. So you're trying to sneak through an area, and you got someone with very, like, say for example, we go back to our Barry here. Barry is trying to move through an area stealthy. He's not the most nimble. He has good quicks, but he doesn't have anything in move. But he's got Tom there, and Tom is good at moving. But Barry's still worse, so Barry's the one rolling the check. We get a +1. We get a roll. We roll the dice. Oh, shit. Not good for Barry. Let me give Barry some faith. Yeah, Barry didn't do good there. Barry rolled 3 ones on his trouble dice. So, yeah, this is where we can go with the idea of we have to buy off trouble. So I can spend faith points, either -3, -2, -1. Let's have Barry spend all 3 of his faith points. And he still has 1 more faith point to push. He succeeded, but he also rolled trouble. Which means he has to roll on the trouble table. But it's trouble with 1 outcome. So it's trouble, outcome, physical, or conflict. So we're going to roll this. And it says to us that for this conflict and fictional, your attack was underpowered or your action is too weak. I lose a 6 from my pool of successes. So that 1 6 I got from succeeding fails. So I failed the check. Barry failed sneaking. So let's just say you're sneaking through some wood. Tom's sneaking ahead. Barry's following by. Barry hears a creak of him failing the check. The board creaks. You think it's not loud enough to... Or Tom thinks it's not loud enough to wake anyone. Barry thinks he's just woken everyone up and shouts, fuck. And that's when he wakes everyone up. That's how that kind of role would play out. Yeah, and that's how trouble can land you in shit. So yeah, back to the PDF. Da-da-da-da-da. And that's how group roles play in Effekt. Now, sometimes you want to do some PvP. That's where opposed roles come in. And in these cases, the person who rolls the most 6s wins. And if you roll more than 1 6 more than your opponent, you get a stun on them. Yeah. So again, we've covered faith. You have a number of faith points, and acting within your faith regenerates them. You always start with 4 at the beginning of every tale. You'll be spending them through the game, and they are very much a resource. Acting in ways that is with your faith, so acting in character, gets you faith back. Acting against your faith can have you lose it very easily. And also, no character can have more than 10 faith points at a time. Faith points let you choose to reroll and let you buy off trouble. And when your faith runs dry, you're shaken. Meaning you can't regenerate any further faith. You need to really get down with your faith to get it back up. So be aware of that when you're trying to spend too much faith. Again, you gain faith points every time you score 3 or more successes on an ability roll. So, if you roll a bunch of 6s, you get some faith back. Otherwise, so long as you're following faith, you will get faith back. Or you can spend some time, like in downtime or when you're not actually doing anything, to get back in touch with your faith. So, like doing stuff like brushing a horse, doing stuff you like, getting wasted. Okay. And again, rolling, we have actions. You have actions, which are the things you do when you're doing checks. Rituals are the kind of like downtime things. And I'll treat it in that way. 1 good night's sleep automatically earns you 2 faith points. So say we have a session where we're running through multiple nights. Getting a good night's sleep is a good way of regenerating faith points. So you can go, fuck, I've got no faith. Fuck you guys, I'm going to bed. Wake me up if something bad happens. Kind of stuff. And again, you have no faith, you can't push rolls, and you cannot gain faith through normal means. And you can't do that until you restore your faith. Now, you can completely lose faith, which means you need to find new faith. An arduous journey for us all. And obviously here we go through some examples of what each skills can do for a check, what the stunts mean, which I've already kind of discussed. Yes, God loves you for sleeping. Alright. What time are we on? I've been streaming for 2 hours. Longer than the expected duration of streaming. So, I think I will find a nice little stopping point and maybe continue this at another point. But for now, we'll just keep jogging through until we get to... I'd say till we get to like guns. Or like... Oh, next, so... When we covered with a character, we covered some talents. So, here are some of the other talents we have in this game. Or like, in most cases, we'll see the basics that we had or the advances. So, like, we have Animal Hunter. We know how to track and hunt animals. Basics gives us a bonus when attacking a wild animal. And we can automatically crit if we advance it. Authority, which we know is the lawman skill. We can... Basics, we get a bonus to our presence. Advanced, in a duel, which we'll cover at a later point, you can use the weight of your present to get an advantage. Or to get the drop on your enemy. Born in the Saddle, basic, +1 to animal handling. Advanced, you can drive hard a horse. So you can push a horse to its limits without breaking them very quickly. So this not only helps with you, this probably helps with the horse's roll as well. So the horse gains a +3 resilience, meaning you can spare that horse to go faster or keep running. Bowmaster, you get the no range penalties for long range attacks. And we can deal double damage with a bow if we advance it. We can make bows. This is a generic talent. This is something we have to make later on. We can make bows. It's just the basic. And then we can make high quality bows if we advance it. Brawler. We're good at fighting. We get a +1 bonus. You're seeing the pattern here. Basic gives us a +1 bonus. Advanced gives us something extra. Like Bonk Up Rusting. We can train a horse. Advanced, we're a horse whisperer. Again, Micah talent. Cold-blooded. You can perform a coup de grace without needing to make a docility check. I still lose the point of docility. Advanced, you never need to make a roll when you kill a person who is defenseless. But this ruthlessness can be seen and sensed another way in expression in your face. You don't lose docility. You don't lose a link of sleep when you kill someone. But your crew are mortified by you. So yeah, we go through. Get some bonuses to Cold Shot with Deadeye. Deadly Striker. they tend to lean into different ways and give you certain advantages. So, like, for example, we had Tracker. Somewhere. Again, we can be Manhunter. Yes, you can be Micah from Red Dead Redemption. There's a reason why I call it the Micah. But you need to remember, you are a ruthless killing machine. The people around you, not. So, like, you have to really, like, reconcile with your partner when you are killing people. And also, again, the coup de grace and dexterity checks are all for killing people defenseless or people who have surrendered. So you can get a killing blow on someone in a gunfight and not lose docility for it, because it's the consequence of a gunfight. It's more around when you're killing someone who is defenseless. It's like you kill someone who's on the ground bleeding out, you can just go there and just go finishing blow. But like, say you're a gentlefolk and a gunfight happens and you just dome someone because you rolled that good on your shooting, and their brains get splattered across the table. You're not gonna lose docility. You not even know you were the one who took that shot. So again, we're going through. There are quite a few talents. You can have tomahawks, which is a fun idea. I was originally looking at the idea of like, hey, were there boomerangs in the Wild West? And no, they weren't. Yeah, Pugilist is fun. Or Pugilist. You can immediately throw a combination punch as a free action. Yeah. I like the idea of boomerang, but I was doing some research on boomerangs. They went in the Wild West because they are native to Australia. And they were mainly used for bird hunting. And did not come back to you when you hit. They only came back to you if you missed. Which were used as a distraction tool. Again, here's your 2-gun. You can war cry. And yeah, those are your talents. Then we get to conflict and damage. So I'll cover conflict and damage, and then I think I will end this section, and we will continue this at another point. So again, conflict is always the stuff that happens. So again, you are aware that you have like four different HP bars in Tales of the Old West. And again, like, so you have your conflict and how that's measured. You have time measuring. Usually a round is 5 to 10 seconds in combat. A turn is 5 to 10 minutes of exploration. And like a shift is 6 hours. It's like, we're not going to like go through your entire like shift at the laundromat and like make you roll a check for every piece of clothing you wash. So we have the range table. So you have arm's length, which means you can grab literally get fucking here. Like, I can try and grab chat. You're in arm's length. Fuck you. Yeah. So stuff like that. You have near, which is just a few meters away. Short is the average of 25 meters. Medium is 50 meters. Long is 150. Distant is there. Usually, in most cases, combat is like arm's length to short. And a lot of the guns in the game go for that. And then we get to the fun part, initiative. So, initiative is done by drawing a deck of cards. And the number of the deck you draw is your initiative. And it's treated like poker. So, aces are always your highest. So if you get an ace, you're going first. And you can like correlate them in spades, in like the suits as well. So like spades are first, then hearts, then diamonds, then clubs. So if you draw the same number as someone else, as long as you have a different suit, you have at different times. And that's how it's done. All of the Year Zero engine games treat initiative like this. Although in some cases they won't have a full deck of 52. It will be just a deck of 10, so you can't take the same number. This one lets you take the same number. Obviously, NPCs do the same. You can trade your cards with your teammates if circumstances allow you to. So usually I would play this in, if you roll initiative and like you've got the jump on them, so you roll your initiative first. You can choose for someone to go first. Now, when playing, you have 2 actions per round. You have the choice of either a slow action and a fast action, or 2 fast actions. So think in Lancer terms, you either have a full action or 2 quick actions. You cannot do the same action twice. So you describe your actions and what you're doing, and usually have a certain check. There is this table here of examples of stuff and what they usually mean and what kind of skill and roll they will require. Shooting a ranged weapon is a shooting check and is a slow action, unless, as we saw earlier, you have 2 pistols, in which case shooting becomes a fast action, meaning you can shoot twice. You also do have the option of quick shot. So you can shoot with your main gun and quick shot with your other. Or you can aim and then shoot. It gives you a way of doing things. Drawing your weapon is a fast action, so you can draw and you can shoot. But there are drawbacks to that, which are usually reliant on your holster. So if you want to shoot and you drew your weapon, you have to abide by the draw penalty of your gun. And then you have the usual stuff. Backing out, seek cover, ride, drive, stuff like that. And it gives us some examples of stuff. And gives us ideas of like dodging and blocking and range conflict. Again, you can do stuff like you can backing out of a fight, attacking someone with a lasso, which in most cases is just an animal handling check. You have your stuff with like range conflict. Again, you have your weapon actions, so which we'll get to soon. Cold shot, so that's basically calling the location you're going to shoot. It gives you a penalty, but it guarantees that when you shoot someone, you hit that zone. So if you crit, you will always cause an injury in the zone you called the shot for. You might not always crit in the cold shot zone, but if you do crit, it's always in that cold shot zone. So if I call headshot and I shoot someone and I hit them, I've hit them in the head, but I haven't crit them in the head. If I crit them in the head, or if I score a crit with that gun, it will always be a headshot crit. Which means when I'm rolling on the critical injuries table, it's only the headshots. So in most cases, you're kind of just rolling a d6 and then looking at the headshot table. So like, if I go to it here, I look at this. Headshots are near at the very end, so like you see headshot location. $61 is just a nasty flesh wound. 62 is a broken nose. 63 is a gouged eye. I can fracture their skull. I can slash their throat. I can insta-kill them. And that's the kind of stuff you can do when calling a shot. Now, you might not always call for a headshot. You can call for like crippling a leg, shooting an arm, shooting a gun. You can choose to literally shoot the gun out of someone's hand. Yes, long-term effect. Long-term effect, you are very dead. Again, the critical injury is this. There should also be lists for the chest as well. Yeah, you literally have it like shot through the heart. And your heart just beats for one more time. So you can, if you shoot someone in the chest, then yeah. But sometimes calling for a shot has some advantages. As I talk with this nice little chummy music in the background. Okay. Close this, go back to the PDF. And again, that's how it comes with resolving stuff. Now, I kind of want to go into more detail with gunplay. It's like, it gives us some stuff with gunplays here, but it doesn't show us like the weapon stats yet. So, like with your gun, you usually have a few stats that come into account with your gun. And I'll see if I can. I actually want to cover them first. Where is it? Before I scroll up, because it's actually nice to have them before. So if I just go to guns to explain the gun stats stuff, and then go back to finish the combat resolution. Where are my guns? Where are my guns? I'm sure they're around here somewhere. Where's gun? Gun. No, guns really are just far back. Gun. Here we are, guns. So, here are our guns. You can see that the guns have their own stats, such as attack modifiers, draw mods. So, when I was talking about drawing your gun, this is the modifications I was talking about. So, if you have a holster, you get a +1 to this. If your gun doesn't have a holster, no dice. But the draw mod is the modification of the gun when you are drawing it. This is only when you're drawing it. So if you were drawing it and then shooting it, this is the mod you use. Or if you are in a duel and you have to draw your gun, this is the modification you use. So if I draw and then shoot, I have a -1. To indicate you pulling that gun out of your holster and then aiming and shooting. If you don't have a holster, you're not going to have that kind of advantage. So some guns are really good for drawing, like the Cooper. Also, with guns, it will tell you if it's a double action or a single action gun, which will come to a factor when I discuss things like fanning the hammer. So it will indicate whether or not it's a single or it's a double. So then, you have the draw mod, you have the attack mod with the gun, so this is the extra dice you get from just having the gun. You have the damage the gun can deal. Crit. This is the number of sixes needed to install to give you a critical injury. Or have you inflict a critical injury. So, you roll 1/6 to hit, and then you roll an extra 6. You can spend that 1 extra 6 to crit. Range is obviously the range in which you can shoot that gun until you start inflicting minus penalties. Now, medium range means you get that -1 penalty. It is not the actual range you can shoot without a penalty. It is the range you can shoot when you start getting penalties. And then you have gun qualities like reliable, can it fan, is it long barrel, is it powerful, its ammo count, its weight, and how many dollars it costs. Back to how actions can work. New. And then I'll probably end the session. New. 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 I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. There we go. So over actions, we have the stuff we can do. We have calling strikes, blocking and dodging, backing out of a fight, modifiers. So again, you have your modifiers for like weapon actions. So certain guns will give you certain modifiers. Aiming, as we saw earlier, aiming with a gun can give you a +2 to your shooting roll. And you can do this as a fast action. So sometimes it pays off to aim and then fire. But obviously you can only aim and then fire if you had your gun already drawn. Making a cold shot is the same thing, it's a fast action. So you could make a cold shot and then aim, but you can't shoot. You can make a cold shot, aim, and then shoot on your next turn if they don't move. And it gives you a -3 penalty. But it's all a case of adding and subtracting modifiers for your final check. And then obviously you have quick shots, which are making snapshot actions, which gives you the -2 penalties, which was discussed earlier. Which was mentioned when you have the 2 guns thing. You have 2 guns, but you still get the -2 penalty, which makes it a -4 penalty. And then obviously also target size plays a factor into the modifier as well. As well as cover doesn't. Cover indicates how many penalty the penalty of the modification, as well as like how many 6s you actually need to punch through that cover or hit someone through that cover. So if you're shooting someone and they are partially obscured, you have a -1 penalty. If they're behind heavy cover, they have a -2. It kind of indicates you being able to actually punch through that cover in the first place. Unless you have a talent that lets you ricochet a shot. Range also gives a penalty. So if you're near, you get a +1 in some cases. If you're medium range, you have the -1 penalty that was mentioned earlier. Long range gives you -2. And further than that gives you -3. And then you shoot. So we have this modification table here of all the stuff you can do that gives you plus bonuses and minus bonuses depending on what actions you can take. So again, aiming gives you a +1, or same for like calling an all-out attack. Quick shots gives you a -2. Hitting someone inactive at arm's length gives you a +3. So if you have to drop on someone and you have the gun to their head, you get a +3. But if they're actively attacking you, you get a -3. So bring that into consideration when you're a fight. If you're in arm's length of someone who isn't engaged with you, shoot them, because it's easier. Then you have your ranged. Then you have your cover. You can only hit someone behind heavy cover if you call the shot. And then obviously, if you're grappling someone and you initiate the grapple, you get a +2. Now, to finally kick things off, duels. You can have gun duels in this game, and it's just fun. So, when you're in a gun duel, which is usually the one-on-one gunfight, draw kind of situation, you have the face-off. When you're dueling someone in the face-off, both fighters try to psych each other out to make your opponent flinch and go for their gun first, and thus it gives you the self-defense reason to kill. If you shake your gunfighter to draw first, then you have the right to self-defense. So this is you start off by making presence rolls against one another. The winner of that presence roll gets a +1 draw bonus for every success over their opponent. So you roll a number of 6s. Say you roll 2 6s more than your opponent, you have a +2 on your draw. Then you actually get to go for your gun. This is your light-fingered roll to show you're actually reaching for your gun. This is where your draw modifier would come in. So you would roll and you would add the +1 modifiers for your draw. So let's say Barry got a +2. Barry's going to get a +2 to his roll. So that's where the +1 goes in. And then whoever draws their gun first gets to shoot first. So they are always... The person who wins this roll shoots first. If they tie, it's done at the exact same time. Then you have the shoot-off. You have the actual shooting of the gun. You shoot the gun at your opponent. If this happens at the exact same time, this happens at the exact same time. If it doesn't, your hit hits the opponent before their gun hits you. So if you kill them before they fire, they're dead. Is the fight over? Did someone die or give up? If not, shit carries on. But rather than drawing and shooting, you just keep shooting. And this is where stuff like your trouble dice pays in. And those are how duels play out. So if you want to keep challenging people to duels, this is you'll be doing this a lot. Next up, fanning the hammer. So, fanning the pistol means you keep your finger on the trigger and you are just pulling the hammer back on your gun. This is how you can rapid fire in this game. You can only do this with single action pistols. The mechanics of the double action doesn't let you fan. So there are some conditions that you have to have where you can only fan your weapon if your weapon is a single action pistol. You have 4 bullets left. You have both your hands free. And you have all your actions available to do this in an entire round. You can't aim while fanning. That's something that has to be made clear. And you can't make cold shots. You are basically spray and praying. Another factor that is missing here, which I actually don't imply, is you need more than one opponent or more than one target when fanning the hammer. You can't fan the hammer on a single target. I, personally, as a DM, would ignore that rule and let you do that during a duel. And let you fan the hammer in a duel, because it's fun. So, when you're fanning the hammer with a weapon, you're basically letting lead hit the air. All of your attacks are done with the -2 modifier to your shooting, because you're not being accurate when you're fanning the hammer. And you get to choose more than one target with your fanning attack, up to a maximum of 3. And they are all within arm's length of one another, so you have to be bunched up. You get a -1 dice per target. Every fanning attack the reason why fanning is good, every success when fanning the hammer is its own hit. So, how this plays out is, if we go back to the actual table, or we say we have a pistol, the damage of our pistol is 2. That means a single hit with that gun is damage 2. So we've hit them, we've dealt 2 damage. Yeah. They have to be bunched together. You can't shoot someone behind you with fanning the hammer. Yeah. It's kind of like that. So, the advantage is it spreads the damage. Now, what I like about fanning the hammer is it lets you do a shit ton of damage to a single person, even though you can't crit them. You can technically crit them. So when you fan the hammer, first success counts as 2 bullets hit. So when you hit them with the first bullet, it always counts as 2 bullets hitting. Meaning you're doing double damage. So it's treated as if there's 2 separate attacks hitting them. Yeah, it does cost a lot of bullets. And both of those hits count as separate attacks. So again, in every fanning attack, the first success counts as 2 bullets hit, as if it was 2 separate attacks. These can hit the same target or can be split across 2 targets, as long as the intention was to hit more than 1 target was made. This is what I meant of, you have to say you're hitting 2 targets in order to hit 1 target with fanning. Those 2 hits both count as separate attacks and are each delivered with equal damage to the damage rating of the weapon. Further successes, so when you roll your first success and you hit, you've hit twice. Then, that's when you start spending your extra 6s. You can either spend the 6 to have a third bullet strike a target, as if it was a single declared attack. You can choose to stunt those bullets to do extra damage, or inflict a critical injury. If you score a critical injury with a fanning attack, you roll the critical injury twice, but take the lesser result. And obviously, your weapon is emptied by the attack and you need to reload before you can do that again. You cannot fan the hammer while dueling. Ignore this. Fan the hammer while dueling is fun. If you want to be John Marston, do that. It gives you a negative advantage if you try, but fuck it, do it anyway. And again, obviously we have Overwatch as well. What makes you lose Overwatch and stuff like that, as well as like ambushes and sneak attacks and cover. Okay, I said that was going to be the end, but we are going to just cover damage in a nice little simple sense. So, as you might have noticed here, if we go back to Barry. So, you notice here? Hey, Barry has hurts, shakes, vexes, and doubts. These are your HP bars. So, each round, or each like resting phase, these clear. So you don't have to worry about them stacking constantly. Usually it's a case of these will refresh at a single encounter. So like, you have 10 minutes of nothing, these will refresh. The reason for this is taking damage to hurts, shakes, vexes, and doubts is actually very bad. And very crippling. And we'll show you why. We will say Barry is about to take a hit to his shakes. That has now affected his quick. He now only has 3 quick instead of 4. The more damage you take, the less you can actually succeed on a roll. So you lose dice if you have damage. And if you have all of them filled out, you are down and out. Now, usually, in most cases, if you take damage, it will be split in a specific way. You will first take the damage in it'll either be physical or mental. You will take the damage in one that is best suited to the failure. So say, for example, Barry takes damage to his vexes, but he's still got some damage rolling over. He won't take another point to his vexes. He will take another point. He will then take a point to his doubts. He still has some damage to take, so he will then take another point to his vexes, and then say that's about as much damage as he's taken. Now, Barry has to avoid social encounters, because if Barry's in a bad situation and he takes another point to his doubts, he's going to be kind of a blumbering mess. He can risk taking another single point to his vexes just fine. It may affect his Hawkeye and nature, but another point to his doubts, so he's like got nothing. Yeah. That's why like risking having 2 docility is kind of bad. So you have to be very much aware of that. That if you have 2 points in something, you are very much likely to be taken out of the situation, of the scene, by that. So Barry, in social encounters and in social checks, is very susceptible to becoming a blumbering mess. While they can be very cunning and, yeah, they're not great with docility. So, yeah. But while they can handle themselves in hurt. So say Barry falls down a hill. He takes a point to his hilts and then a point to his shakes. He can still do stuff. But you've got to remember, like, if I take 3 points to my shakes and I try shooting someone, I've only got 3 dice. Which means less chances of success. I have to push. And for some reason, I pushed like a baller and got 3 successes. That's something you've got to take in consideration with health. Health can usually, these damages can usually come off as a consequence of taking a hit or as a consequence of your failed check. But you need to remember, if you take some rest, it goes away. It's not that bad. And yeah, but on that is like literally where I think I'm gonna do stuff. So I'm gonna flip back over here and hopefully pop into existence. I have not popped into existence. I'm still in the void. There we go. And yeah, that's going to be it for Tales of the Old West so far. So this was kind of basically going to be a very short stream of, hey, in Cinder, figure stuff out and get like my groove in and like see how like the projector thing works and how basically all the other stuff works with my presentation and my backgrounds. And basically that. So that's going to be it. There will be a second part to this at some point in the future, similar to how I did my Wild Seas. It may be next month. Remember, until I debut, my streams are once in a blue moon. So, yeah. Probably a bit sooner. The only reason I said I was going to be streaming today is, one, to really